Hello and welcome to Africa Update, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, from Trust Television. We have a lot for you this week, a bit on what's happening on the continent, on political matters, healthcare matters, and other matters. Just stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, it's still Africa Update on Trust Television, and I'm your host, Chiamaka. Nwafor. Now I'm going to start with election matters. Mauritius opposition leader Navin Ramgoolam has won a landslide victory in the parliamentary vote, the Election Commission has said. And the Office of the Electoral Commissioner said on Tuesday that Ramgoolam and his Alliance of Change ADC coalition won 62.6% of the vote, securing the three-time former Prime Minister a fourth term. The ADC won 60 of 62 seats in the National Assembly. State broadcaster Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation also reported Ramgoolam served as Prime Minister from 1995 to 2000 and again from 2005 to 2014. Here's more.
Fireworks light up the sky near the capital of Mauritius on Monday night. Celebrations of a massive election win for opposition coalition leader Navin Ramgoolam. He was appointed Prime Minister on Tuesday. The country's state broadcaster said Ramgoolam's Alliance de Changement coalition, or ADC, won a landslide 60 of 62 National Assembly seats. The Election Commission said the ADC earned over 62% of votes on Sunday's ballot. The country of about 1.3 million people markets itself as a link between Africa and Asia. Incumbent Pravin Jugnauth had been in office since 2017 and had steered the Indian Ocean archipelago to 7% economic growth last year. Last month, he negotiated an agreement for Britain to cede the Chagos Islands while keeping a strategically important US-UK airbase. Jugnauth's popularity, though, appeared to have been badly dented by corruption allegations and a cost of living crisis. Political analyst Javid Bolas said voters had felt frustrated.
The last 10 years under the outgoing government have been quite tumultuous, marked by numerous scandals, corruption, and rising public dissatisfaction.
Ramgoolam has served 3 previous terms as Prime Minister and is the son of the man who led Mauritius to independence in 1968. He says his priorities include ending the rising cost of living, rooting out corruption, and putting a stop to what he calls the country's spy system.
Still on election matters, over in Senegal, the country is set to hold its parliamentary elections this weekend, which will see former presidential rivals, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and ex-President Macky Sall, compete for control of the 165-seat National Assembly. Earlier in September, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dissolved parliament, citing opposition obstruction and call for snap elections. Here's more.
Senegal's parliamentary elections this weekend will see former presidential rivals, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and ex-President Macky Sall compete for control of the 165-seat National Assembly. This follows their showdown in the March 2024 presidential election. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dissolved parliament in September, citing opposition obstruction and called for snap elections. 4 major coalitions dominate the race, including opposition Taku Walu, backed by Sall. Senegalese voters traditionally grant the president a parliamentary majority, but economic challenges like unemployment, inflation and recent flooding have fueled discontent. Former President Sall, now campaigning from Morocco, accuses Faye's administration of reversing its economic progress. In response, Faye's government blames the opposition's prior mismanagement and lack of parliamentary support for delays in delivering reforms.
Still in Senegal, the European Union has announced it will not renew its fishing agreement with the country, citing concerns over the country's efforts to curb illegal fishing. The EU delegation in Senegal confirmed the decision on Tuesday, highlighting concerns over monitoring and control of both Senegalese and foreign vessels, especially those operating from Dakar's port. Senegal had been flagged by the EU earlier this year as a non-cooperating country in the fight against illegal fishing, with European officials pointing to inadequate monitoring and surveillance systems. Without a renewed agreement, European vessels will be required to exit Senegalese waters when the deal expires on Sunday, halting financial contributions to Senegal under this pact.
faciliter la prise en compte des... L'Union européenne ne souhaite pas renouveler d'accords de pêche avec des pays dont on sait qu'il y a une difficulté avec la pêche illégale et qu'un certain nombre de contrôles doivent être renforcés de manière à lutter contre cette pêche illégale. Le 27 mai dernier, la Commission européenne a notifié à l'État du Sénégal le fait qu'il y avait un certain nombre de défaillances qui avaient été constatées dans le cadre de la pêche illicite, non déclarée et non réglementée.
And from there we go to Sudan, where on Wednesday its military-controlled government announced that it will keep open a key border crossing with Chad to allow much-needed humanitarian aid to flow into the western Darfur region, which has been a center of fighting in the country's ongoing war. Here's more from African News.
Sudan's military-controlled government said Wednesday that a key border crossing with Chad will stay open to keep much-needed humanitarian aid flowing into the western Darfur region, which has been a center of fighting in the country's ongoing war. The decision on the Adre crossing followed a meeting with the United Nations agency and local and international aid groups, Sudan's ruling Sovereign Council said in a statement. Sudan's government's announcement that the Adre crossing will remain open for another 3 months will enable the UN and its partners to continue delivering critical needed aid. The border crossing, which was closed earlier this year, was reopened in August for 3 months by the Sovereign Council to address the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Darfur. Famine has been confirmed in the Zamzam displacement camp near El Fasher, North Darfur's provincial capital. Sudan plunged into conflict in mid-April 2023 when long-simmering tensions between its military and paramilitary troops broke out in the capital Khartoum and spread to other regions including Darfur, which was wrecked by bloodshed and atrocities in 2003.
And over in South Africa, the government says it will not help an estimated 4,000 illegal miners inside a closed mine in the country's northwest province who have been denied access to basic supplies as part of an official strategy against illegal mining. The miners in the mine shaft in Stilfontein are believed to be suffering from a lack of food, water and other basic necessities from police, after police closed off the entrances used to transport their supplies underground. It is part of the police's Vala Ngudi, or close the hole operation, which includes cutting off miner supplies to force them to return to the surface and be arrested.
We have consulted with the mine owner, we have consulted with DMRE, and they are telling us that it is unsafe, it's inhumane to allow people to go down there. We have taken a decision that no police officer, no soldier, no government official will go down to an abandoned mine. Firstly, there are hazardous gases that are flowing there.
It shows that the government has intention of at least committing genocide. I mean, our government has launched a case against Israel for not providing food to people. Now we are here in South Africa. The very same government cannot provide food to the people that are dying in the same land.
Wow, that's the irony there. South Africa fighting for Gaza. Meanwhile, it's not helping these people come out from the mines. You're still on to Africa Update on Trust TV. Still to come, we'll have stories on what's happening here in Nigeria and in other parts of the continent. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You're still tuned to Africa Update right here on Trust Television. Now let's get to more of our stories. Now we take you to DRC, where the World Bank and other financial institutions are engaged in discussions about funding a mega hydropower project in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which could potentially supply electricity across the entire African continent. The Grand Inga Dam is capable of producing 44,000 megawatts of power and is estimated to cost $80 billion. African News correspondent Chris Okamringa visited the dam and has more.
The raging waters of the Congo River are raising hopes of ending the energy shortages in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The government plans to build 6 hydropower stations near a waterfall in the country's west. The construction has stalled for over a decade because of disagreements between the previous administration and the World Bank over issues of transparency. But the project has also faced opposition from activists.
This huge hydropower project is supposed to provide electricity across the DRC and to neighboring countries once it's completed. But some activists have criticized it for focusing more on the needs of investors in the mining sector rather than the development goal of providing electricity throughout the country.
Still, the current regime has revived talks with the World Bank to fund the Grand Inga Dam project. 2 hydropower stations are already operational. A significant amount of the electricity generated will go to the DRC's mining heartland of Katanga. The national electricity utility serves the population and companies while giving, to a certain extent, priority to the mining firms that have invested. However, nowhere is it written in the contract that 100% of the power should go to the mining companies. When the project, estimated at $80 billion, will be fully operational, many Congolese won't be able to afford the electricity. Business people attending the Makutano International Forum ending on November 15 were eagerly waiting for the dam to start operations. We have to do it regardless of the size of the project, whether here at Inga or anywhere else in the country. Even if it's a small dam, it must be built. The Grand Inga Dam is capable of producing 44,000 megawatts of power. Authorities say it may take another decade for the 6 dams to be completed. South Africa and Nigeria have expressed interest in importing power.
Now, something is happening currently in Azerbaijan, and that is the COP29, climate change. And of course, it's dubbed the Finance Cup and is underway in Baku. Now, this year, the spotlight is on financial commitments to combat climate change, with global attention focused on climate financing. Nigerians speak on if the high-level pledges and agreements made at these conferences are translating into real action back home. Our correspondent over there, Chiamaka has more on the story.
It's the 29th United Nations Climate Change Conference, and this time the stakes are higher than ever. Dubbed the Finance Cup, the summit in Baku is calling for robust financial investment to help nations hit hardest by climate change. As the world meets right here in Baku City, the capital of Azerbaijan, to discuss on the global climate situation and chart the path moving forward, it is important to hear from Nigerians who are currently right here on ground at COP29 to hear their opinion on whether or not they are starting to see the climate decisions and agreements translate to climate action back home in Nigeria. But beyond these halls in Baku, are the pledges made at these climate conferences making a difference in places like Nigeria? Back home, Nigerians have seen climate impacts grow more intense, from deadly floods to desert encroachment and energy instability.
Our participation at the Conference of Parties is a clear demonstration of our commitment to taking actions to address climate issues and challenges.
Nigeria joining the Conference of Parties is very critical. It has a say to the African group, to the G77 and China together, so that we can have a voice, so that we can have some funding that will be able to bring succor to these people that are suffering from the issues of this climate change, from the impact.
Oyo State are taking an intentional move towards the actualization of climate change policies and plans. And that's I feel that should be like it for almost all my colleagues from Nigeria.
The financial commitments discussed at COP29 could help Nigeria mitigate climate risks, support clean energy initiatives, and address rising waste. But as some Nigerians point out, these funds must translate to tangible projects that improve lives on the ground.
The climate risks and challenges we see in Africa are faster then actions being taken to mitigate and adapt to these challenges.
And while some Nigerians say they are indeed starting to see these decisions have some action back home in Nigeria, some others say that beyond coming here annually, it is important that we start to have some homegrown situations and solutions from Nigerians and by Nigerians.
Back here to Africa, we go to the southern part of the continent, where in Zimbabwe, farmers are beginning to embrace climate-smart agriculture initiatives to adapt to challenging environmental conditions. Farmers like Gertrude Siduna and Mukachenenta Mutua, through training funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, have discovered crops and technology suited to Zimbabwe's changing climate. Here's more.
In Zimbabwe's arid regions, farmers are embracing climate-smart agriculture initiatives to adapt to challenging environmental conditions. Through trainings funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, they've discovered crops and technology suited to Zimbabwe's changing climate. Siduna now cultivates chilies instead of traditional corn. I just pick it from the fields and take it to the cashew processing center close to my house. It's simple. I get my money, which I then use to buy cornmeal. I don't like cornmeal. Muchaneta also benefited from these initiatives, particularly through access to solar-powered water technology. The solar technology has been quite helpful. We were struggling, walking long distances to fetch water from the rivers using buckets, and right now the rivers are dry, so solar technology helps us. We now have easy access to reliable water that flows from the taps. We don't pay for the sun. Across Zimbabwe, community gardens with solar-powered irrigation are yielding essential crops like onions, leafy greens, and cowpeas. These gardens not only nourish families but also help fund basic needs such as school fees through vegetable sales.
And now let's go over to Sierra Leone, where authorities in the country have launched an Ebola vaccination campaign targeting at least 5,000 health workers. Many health workers caught the Ebola virus during the outbreak that hit West Africa a decade ago. Victoria Amunga reports from Kanema, Sierra Leone.
The name of dozens of healthcare workers who died in the 2014 Ebola outbreak. The names are displayed outside a hospital in Kenema, one of the worst-hit cities during the 2-year outbreak that killed nearly 4,000 people in Sierra Leone. Mohamed Feika, a healthcare worker here, recalls how many of his co-workers died after contracting Ebola while caring for patients.
That greatly affected me, looking at some social activity as well. You as well, let me just ignore myself. Let me look at other people.
Now there's an Ebola vaccination campaign to protect healthcare workers like Feika. The Gavi Vaccine Alliance in June launched a preventive Ebola vaccination program to help contain the disease and protect critical healthcare and frontline workers in high-risk countries like Sierra Leone.
There was that kind of fear among healthcare workers, even among the entire population. So upon taking the vaccine, I now have the confidence that maybe when there is an outbreak, I will not be infected.
The single-dose vaccine is being provided to healthcare workers in countries that have had Ebola cases and those that border countries that have experienced Ebola outbreaks.
It's going to be 20,000 vaccines to start with, and we feel this is sufficient to cover the frontline workers I've just mentioned and protect those that are most vulnerable. And then, of course, we will be replenishing the stockpile so that we still have that 500,000 and then moving to other countries that are at high risk of Ebola outbreaks.
The Ebola virus is spread through contact with the bodily fluids of an infected person. The average fatality rate for Ebola is about 60%, according to Gavi. Since Sierra Leone is considered a high-risk area, the government has set up a public health agency to enhance detection of the disease and prevent further outbreaks.
We know we are in an endemic zone. We know it's only the matter of when and not if that will be an outbreak. Every week we have a suspected case that we have to respond to. So a dedicated agency has been created to just look at that preparedness and response.
As part of the campaign, community and religious leaders are encouraging the public to accept the shots. The Reverend Usman Fona is one such leader.
We use the pulpit. The mosques use the mimbar. The churches use the pulpit on Sundays and on Fridays. At weekday meetings, also at naming ceremonies, when we go to name children, we let the congregation that are present to know the value of vaccination.
More than 11,000 people died during the Ebola outbreak in West Africa between 2014 and 2016, most of them in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. Authorities hope the Ebola vaccination campaign will help avert such a disaster in the future.
And finally, back home. With prices rising, Nigerians are becoming creative. Thrift shopping, locally called Okrika, is booming, offering affordable options. Gibson Emeka has more from Abuja in this report. It was narrated by VOA's Salem Solomon.
For years, 30-year-old Agatha Okori, a successful businesswoman in Abuja, shopped at upscale boutiques. But with the price of new clothing more than doubling, she's now turning to second-hand shops for more affordable options. Okori says thrift clothes let her keep her style without breaking the bank.
I moved from buying brand new clothes to buying thrifts because, one, aside the cost, thrift wears are more durable. I discovered thrift wears are more durable. And like we all know, brand new clothes are quite on the high side. They are quite expensive, way more than thrift wears. That's why they switched to thrift.
Okori is not alone. Once reserved for low-income shoppers, thrift shopping has become mainstream. Known locally as Okrika, thrift markets from Lagos to Abuja are bustling. Economist Isaac Boti notes that for many, thrift shopping is a necessary response to inflation and policies that leave them stretching every dollar.
So they do all of this as the means of survival because the government is not helping, the economic situation is not helping, the Nigerian government policies are not favorable to consumers. So it is two ways, a means of affordability for the consumer and a means of boosting sales for the sellers.
Andrew Eze, who is 32, has seen this shift in fashion firsthand. When prices on new clothing surged, he switched to selling thriftwear in Abuja's famous Nyanya Okrika market. Eze says this helped his business stay afloat.
A time came that the brand new became so high, that is the amount, the price in the market is so high that many cannot afford to get it at that price.
Studies show Nigeria imports more than 500,000 tons of second-hand clothing yearly. But even this alternative feels the pinch as rising import costs push some thrift vendors to raise prices. For many, like civil servant Chris Olofu, this means further compromises on quality and style to stay on budget.
Because in those days that economy was very good, we used to buy from high-profile boutique because there's a way we classify ourselves, living an ostentatious life. But because of the economy, the exigency in the economy now, it has made me at least to cut my clothes according to my size. But no, if the economic condition improves, I have to stop. I have to go back to my normal fashion.
Experts agree that thrift shopping will likely remain popular as long as economic pressures persist. This trend impacts Nigeria's local textile industry due to competition with affordable imported clothing. Boti believes investing in local textile production could eventually make new clothing more affordable, but until then, thrift shopping remains essential.
Government needs to invest in the sector, subsidize their operations, help to relieve the burden, the cost of production, burden of the cost of production on the manufacturer. That will translate to lower cost of production and cost of sales, which is the real accountability.
As Nigerians adapt to the changing economy, thrift markets provide an affordable option.
Life happens, and when life happens, you need to find ways to make it work for you. And as you can see, people have become creative and managing and going to shop at thrift stores. And that's much we have for you this week on Africa Update. I hope you've learned something and could boundaries and gotten informed as well. Till I see you same time, same place next week. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Bye for now.